The massive crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council stretched endlessly in all directions, its translucent walls catching and reflecting the light from 1,000 different worlds. Ambassador Ji-Woo Kim stood at the center of the speakers platform, her black hair pulled back in a simple bun, her hands clasped behind her back as she faced the most diverse gathering of intelligent life in the known galaxy. The air itself seemed to vibrate with tension. Around her, arranged in ascending tiers that spiraled toward the chamber's peak, sat delegates from species that had fought wars spanning millennia, traded across star systems, and collectively governed an empire that spanned 3 galactic arms. Some breathed oxygen like humans, others required specialized atmospheric suits that glowed with internal chemistry. A few existed as pure energy, their forms shifting and dancing within containment fields. Ji-Woo had trained for this moment her entire diplomatic career, but nothing could have prepared her for the sheer weight of alien attention focused on her small human form. She could feel their various sensory organs studying her compound eyes that saw in spectrums beyond human comprehension, electromagnetic sensors that read her biorhythms, and psychic tendrils that probed the edges of her thoughts. The Voltari Council speaker dominated the chamber's highest platform, its serpentine form coiled around a throne of living coral that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. When it spoke, the words emerged from multiple throat chambers simultaneously, creating an otherworldly harmony that the universal translators struggled to interpret. The human request for colonization permits in sectors 7 through 12 is unprecedented and foolish, the speaker announced, its voice carrying the weight of millennia. These sectors have been quarantined for good reason. A ripple of movement swept through the assembled delegates like a wave across an ocean. The bulbous head of the Nexari delegate, whose species resembled a cross between a jellyfish and a walking tree, pulsed with rapid alarm colors that shifted from deep purple to brilliant orange. Its translator buzzed with electronic urgency. Sectors are death zones, the Nexari proclaimed, its voice high and reedy. The shadow beasts consume everything: ships, stations, entire worlds. My grandfather's generation witnessed the destruction of our outer colonies. Nothing remains but cosmic dust and the screams of the dying echoing through subspace. Murmurs of agreement rose from dozens of species. The massive Gorlock representative, whose people stood 12 feet tall and possessed 4 muscular arms capable of crushing starship hulls, leaned forward on his stone podium. His species had evolved on a high-gravity world where only the strongest survived, and their military prowess was legendary throughout the galaxy. The humans know nothing of true warfare, he rumbled, his voice like grinding asteroids. We are warriors born, and even our greatest battle fleets were devoured by those monsters. Entire dreadnought squadrons vanished without sending so much as a distress signal. The insectoid Cathara delegate rose from her crystalline perch, her compound eyes reflecting the chamber's lights in 1,000 different directions. Her species had perfected hive mind technology and possessed some of the galaxy's most advanced scanning equipment. When she spoke, her words came in perfect harmony with her clutch sisters positioned throughout the chamber. They are void spawn. She clicked, her mandibles creating a rhythm that the translator rendered as emphasis. Devourers of light itself. Our deep space monitors have recorded their feeding patterns. They tear holes in reality and drain the life force from everything they encounter. No known weapon can harm them, no shield can stop them. Gu remained perfectly still throughout the outburst, her dark eyes moving from speaker to speaker without showing fear or uncertainty. She had learned long ago that among aliens, any display of weakness could be interpreted as an invitation for domination. Her breathing remained steady, her posture erect, even as the chamber filled with increasingly hostile energy. The Zephalian delegate, whose species communicated through electromagnetic pulses that created aurora-like displays in the air around them, generated a cascade of red and gold lights that the translator interpreted as deep concern. The humans are a young species, the lights pulsed. They have not learned the lessons written in the graves of older civilizations. Perhaps this is not defiance, but ignorance. More voices joined the chorus of objection. The crystalline Shardaki chimed in harmonics that spoke of ancient losses. The gaseous nebula collective swirled in patterns that conveyed primordial fear. Even the usually neutral observers, beings of pure thought who rarely commented on physical matters, projected waves of concern into the chamber's psychic field. But Jiwoo's expression didn't change. Instead, she reached slowly into her diplomatic pouch and withdrew a small device no larger than her palm. With deliberate precision, she activated it, and the chamber's central holographic display came to life. The aliens expected to see the typical human presentation charts, graphs, tactical analyses. Instead, they witnessed something that defied everything they thought they knew about the shadow beasts. The hologram showed a human settlement on a world that should have been impossible to inhabit. Buildings of gleaming metal and growing crystal nestled within valleys where purple grass swayed in alien winds. But surrounding the entire colony, flowing like liquid starlight, were the unmistakable forms of what the galaxy called shadow beasts. The creatures moved with impossible grace, their bodies shifting between solid matter and pure energy. They were beautiful in a way that defied description, part aurora, part living constellation, part cosmic storm. And they were clearly, undeniably, protecting the human settlement. "We call them guardians," Jiwoo said, her voice cutting through the stunned silence that had fallen over the chamber. "And they're already protecting our settlements." The chamber erupted. Delegates from dozens of species rose simultaneously, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony that overwhelmed the translation systems. Clicks, hisses, harmonic tones, light displays, and psychic broadcasts filled the air with confused alien outrage. The Gorlak representative slammed all four of his massive arms on his podium with such force that the reinforced stone cracked. "Impossible. My people lost 3 battle fleets to those nightmares. Our finest warriors, our most advanced weapons all consumed by the void." "As did mine," the Cathara delegate added, her compound eyes flashing with memories of ancient trauma. "They are void spawn, devourers of light itself. No living thing can survive their touch." But Jiwoo continued to manipulate the holographic display, showing more images that challenged everything the council thought they knew. Children playing in gardens, while massive tendrils of living energy tended to their crops. Engineers working alongside beings made of structured dark matter to construct impossible architecture. Families living in harmony with entities that the galaxy had feared for millennia. For 6 months, 12 human colonies have lived in symbiosis with these beings, she announced, her voice carrying across the chamber with quiet authority. "Crime rates, 0. Casualty rates, 0. Agricultural yields, increased by 300%. Infrastructure failures, none. Natural disasters prevented before they could occur." The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence held a different quality. It was no longer the silence of shock, but the silence of minds struggling to process information that challenged fundamental assumptions about the nature of reality. The council speaker's tentacles writhed with confusion, its bioluminescent patterns shifting through spectrums that indicated deep mental distress. "You claim to have tamed the shadow beasts?" it asked, its multiple voices creating harmonics of disbelief. Jiwoo's lips curved in the slightest smile as she delivered the words that would change galactic history forever. "We partnered with them," she corrected. "Perhaps it's time the galaxy learned the difference." 6 months earlier, the research vessel New Dawn drifted through the outer rim of the Kepler Nebula, its hull gleaming silver against the cosmic backdrop of swirling gas and distant stars. Captain Lee Minho stood on the bridge, his weathered hands gripping the command console. As he studied the sensor readings that had brought them to this forbidden region of space, the bridge hummed with quiet efficiency. His crew of 23 had volunteered for this mission, knowing full well they might never return home. The Galactic Council had declared these sectors off-limits after too many ships had vanished without a trace. But humanity's insatiable curiosity had driven them to seek answers where others found only fear. "Sir, we're approaching the boundary of charted space," reported Navigation Officer Park Hyjin, her slender fingers dancing across the holographic interface. She was young, barely 25, but her skills had earned her a place on this dangerous mission. All long-range communications with Earth will be cut off in approximately 10 minutes. Minho nodded grimly. Once they crossed that invisible line, they would be truly alone in the void, with nothing but their courage and their science to guide them. He had served in the Korean Space Navy for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for the weight of responsibility he felt now. Dr. Kim Sunmi looked up from her xenobiology station, her dark eyes bright with excitement despite the danger. She had spent her entire career studying alien life forms, but had never encountered anything like what the reports described. "Captain, I'm reading some unusual quantum fluctuations about 2,000 kilometers ahead. It's like space itself is breathing." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. They had all heard the story ships that had simply vanished, their final transmissions cut off mid-sentence. The few escape pods that had been recovered contained only gibbering survivors who spoke of darkness that devoured light itself. Suddenly, the ship lurched violently to one side. The artificial gravity compensators struggled to maintain equilibrium as the new dawn shuddered like a leaf in a cosmic storm. Emergency lights bathed the bridge in crimson as alarm klaxons wailed throughout. The vessel, Hull Integrity Holding, called out Engineering Chief Cho Woo-song from his station. "But whatever's causing this disturbance, it's not showing up on our conventional scanners." Minho gripped the bridge, railing tighter as another wave of turbulence rocked the ship. Through the main viewport, space itself seemed to ripple and tear like fabric being stretched beyond its limits. Reality warped and twisted in ways that hurt to look at directly. "Contact bearing 045, distance unknown," Hyjin reported, her voice tight with controlled fear. Her training had taught her to remain calm in crisis situations, but the readings on her instruments defied everything she thought she knew about. "Physics. It's massive, sir. I can't get an accurate size reading because it's distorting space around it." Dr. Sunmi's instrument screamed with warnings as energy readings spiked beyond anything in their databases. "Captain, these energy signatures are off the charts. Whatever this thing is, it's not just moving through space, it's warping the very fabric of reality around it." The thing that emerged from the cosmic fold defied every attempt at description. It was larger than their ship, easily 3 times the length of the new dawn, but its boundaries seemed to shift and flow like liquid starlight. It resembled a living constellation of dark matter, with tendrils of pure energy crackling between star-like nodes that pulsed with their own inner light, where it moved. Space bent and twisted in impossible ways. Stars that should have been light years distant appeared to curve around its form, while cosmic dust swirled in patterns that followed laws of physics unknown to human science. The entity seemed to exist partially in their dimension and partially in some other realm that human minds couldn't fully comprehend. "All stop," Minho ordered, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. "Emergency stations. Get us some distance, but don't make any sudden movements." "Sir, what about weapons?" asked Tactical Officer Park Juniseo, his young face pale with sweat beading on his forehead. His hands hovered over the firing controls, but even he seemed to realize the futility of their situation. Minho looked at their weapons, display plasma cannons, photon torpedoes, kinetic railguns. All of it suddenly seemed as threatening as throwing rocks at a hurricane. "Sir, our weapons wouldn't even scratch that thing," Juniseo said. Voicing what everyone was thinking, the entity approached slowly, its movements almost graceful, despite its immense size. It circled the ship like a massive predator studying its prey, but something about its behavior struck Minho as odd. If this creature wanted to destroy them, surely it would have done so already. Dr. Sunmi watched her readings with growing excitement, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. "Captain, look at these biosignatures. The energy patterns. They're not random. There's structure here, complexity. It's not scanning us for weaknesses. It's trying to communicate." "Communicate? How?" Minho asked, moving closer to her station. Sunmi's fingers flew across her instruments, analyzing the data streams flowing in from their sensors. "Light patterns, sir? Look at the way those nodes are pulsing. It's not chaotic. There's rhythm. Sequence, almost like ... double quotes like what?" like language, she whispered, her voice filled with wonder. The entity continued its slow orbit around their ship, its star nodes pulsing in complex patterns that seemed to repeat and evolve. Sunmi quickly programmed their external lights to respond, creating a simple sequence. 3 long flashes, 3 short, 3 long. The response was immediate and electrifying. The entity's star nodes pulsed in the exact same pattern, then continued, with increasingly complex sequences that built upon the initial communication. It was like watching a cosmic conversation unfold before their eyes. "It's intelligent," Sunmi whispered, her scientific training warring with the impossibility of what she was witnessing, "and it's been alone out here for God knows how long." The bridge crew stood transfixed as the entity's light patterns became more elaborate, more urgent. It was clear that this being, whatever it was trying desperately to communicate with them. The pattern spoke of loneliness, of eons spent drifting through empty space without contact. Without purpose, Minho felt the weight of the moment settling on his shoulders. This was not just first contact with an alien species. This was a meeting between 2 forms of consciousness that had evolved on completely different scales. The entity before them was ancient, beyond human comprehension, a being that had witnessed the birth and death of stars. "Dr. Sunmi," he said quietly, "can you maintain the communication link?" "Yes, sir. But Captain, I think it's trying to tell us something important. These patterns, ... they're not just random communication. There's urgency here, almost like a warning." Minho made a decision that would change galactic history forever. He stepped forward to the communication console, his hand hovering over the controls that would broadcast their voices into the void. "Open a channel," he ordered. "All frequencies." For the first time in millennia, a guardian heard a voice that wasn't screaming in terror. Instead, it heard something it had almost forgotten existed in the universe: curiosity, wonder, and the gentle courage of a species willing to reach out to the unknown. "Hello," Minho said simply, his voice carrying across the cosmic void. "Are humans? We come in peace, and we want to understand." The entity's response was immediate, a burst of light, so beautiful and complex that it brought tears to the eyes of everyone on the bridge. After eons of isolation, the Guardian had finally found someone willing to listen. The morning sun of Kepler 44, to be cast long shadows across New Harmony. Colony as Administrator Lee So-young stood on the observation deck of the Central Command Tower. The sight below her would have been impossible to imagine just 3 months ago. Children laughing and playing in bioluminescent gardens, while massive tendrils of living starlight moved gracefully overhead, tending to the settlement's infrastructure. With the delicate care of a cosmic gardener, 8-year-old Park Minjun raced through the glowing purple grass. His friends close behind as they played a game of tag that had evolved far beyond anything their parents had known on Earth. Above them, flowing ribbons of pure energy pulsed in rhythm with their laughter, creating patterns of light that danced. Across the colony's transparent dome, "Cosmos is happy today," Minjun called out to his friend Kim Soo, pointing at the swirling aurora that surrounded their playground. "Look how bright the colors are." The entity they had named Cosmosa, being of dark matter and stellar energy that stretched across several kilometers, responded to the child's voice with a gentle pulse of golden light. Its consciousness touched the edges of human minds throughout the colony, sharing emotions that transcended language. Dr. Jung Tame stood beside So-young on the observation deck, his instruments constantly monitoring the neural link that connected the Guardian to the colony's volunteers. As New Harmony's chief xenopsychologist, he had been among the first to establish contact with Cosmos after Captain Minho's historic first meeting in deep space. Report Dr. Tame So-young said, her eyes never leaving the children below. "Neural link is stable and stronger than ever," he replied, adjusting a specialized headset that allowed him to monitor the Guardian's emotional states. "Cosmos is experiencing something analogous to joy, but it's deeper than that. It's experiencing belonging for the first time in over 10,000 years. The readings on his instrument showed patterns that had taken months to interpret. Cosmos wasn't just protecting the colony, it was actively learning from its human partners. developing new forms of consciousness that had never existed in its species before. Through the colony's central plaza, massive dark matter appendages moved with impossible precision, adjusting atmospheric processors that maintained the perfect balance of gases within the dome. The Guardian's touch was so gentle that it could manipulate individual molecules while simultaneously preventing asteroid strikes from space. Engineer Young-Ho felt the familiar tingle as Cosmos shared its cosmic perception through their neural link. The sensation was unlike anything human science had prepared him for suddenly. He could see gravitational fields as flowing rivers of blue and gold, sense asteroid movements hours before impact, and feel the pulse of the planet's molten core. Beneath his feet, incoming debris field, he announced calmly over the colony's communication system. Cosmos is redirecting it. The colonists didn't even pause their activities. Children continued playing, engineers kept working on expansion projects, and farmers tended to crops that grew in soil enriched by cosmic minerals. They had learned to trust their protector completely. Above them, space itself seemed to bend and flow as the Guardian's gravitational manipulation engaged. What should have been a devastating meteor shower, chunks of rock and ice traveling at thousands of kilometers per hour, was transformed into a gentle rain of harmless particles that sparkled like snow in the artificial atmosphere Cosmos wrapped. The meteors in fields of controlled gravity, slowing them down and breaking them apart until they became nothing more than cosmic dust that settled gently on the colony's outer shields. The entire process took less than 30 seconds, and the Guardian accomplished it without disrupting so much as a single leaf in the children's garden in the colony school. Teacher Yoon Soo-jin watched her students communicating with juvenile Guardians through increasingly complex light pattern games. These young entities, barely the size of shuttlecraft, had arrived weeks ago, drawn by the emotional resonance of their elders' happiness. "Look," Teacher Soo-jin called out 12-year-old Choi Ji-hai, pointing at the small Guardian that hovered near the classroom's transparent ceiling. "Starlight is learning to count." The juvenile Guardian pulsed its nodes in sequences that matched the numbers the children had been teaching it. 1 flash, 2 flashes, 3 flashes, up to 10 before starting over. But then it did something remarkable. It began creating mathematical equations in light, showing the children that it understood not just counting, but the relationships between numbers. "They're not just protecting us," Soo-jin reported to So Young. "Through her communication device, they're learning from us emotion, creativity, the concept of family. We're teaching them things they've never experienced in millions of years of existence." The young Guardians had begun mimicking human behaviors in ways that were both touching and scientifically fascinating. They played games, showed curiosity about human activities, and even seemed to experience something like affection for their human companions. Farmer Oh Han-woo worked in the agricultural sector, where crops grew in soil that had been enriched by cosmic minerals filtered through the Guardian's energy fields. His plants grew faster and stronger than anything possible on Earth, their roots reaching deep into ground that pulsed with otherworldly energy. "The yield reports are incredible," he told his assistant, Lee Kyung-min. "His vegetables are not just bigger, they're more nutritious than anything we've ever grown. Cosmos is somehow enhancing the soil at a molecular level." The Guardian's influence extended beyond simple protection. It was actively improving every aspect of human life in the colony. Water was purer, air was cleaner, and even the weather seemed to respond to the collective mood of the residents. So Young watched as Cosmos gently wrapped a protective tendril around the colony's newest
habitat module.
The touch was so light that the structure's sensors barely registered contact. Yet she knew it was now protected from solar flares, cosmic radiation, and impacts that could destroy a normal space station. "The construction crews say they've never worked so efficiently," reported Chief Engineer Park Dong-hyun over the communication system. "Cosmos anticipates what we need before we even ask for it. It's like having a partner who can read our minds." The bond between humans and Guardian had evolved far beyond simple cooperation. Cosmos was learning to understand human emotions, dreams, and ambitions. While humans gained access to perceptions and abilities that transcended their biological limitations through the neural link, volunteers could experience the Guardians' cosmic awareness, sensing solar winds, feeling the gravitational pull of distant stars, and perceiving the delicate balance of forces that held the solar system together. It was a form of consciousness expansion that philosophers had only dreamed about, and in return, they're giving us the galaxy, Soyoung murmured, watching as Cosmos created a spectacular light display for the children below. The Guardians' joy was infectious, spreading through the neural network to touch every human mind in the colony. For the first time in their species' ancient history, the Guardians were no longer alone in the cosmic void. They had found companions who valued them not as tools or weapons, but as partners in the greatest adventure of all, the exploration of existence itself. The children's laughter echoed across the colony as they danced beneath ribbons of living starlight. Their human joy teaching an ancient cosmic entity what it truly meant to be alive. 3 months after the heated council meeting, the most impressive military fleet in galactic history hung in the void near New Harmony Colony. 12 different species had contributed their finest warships, creating a combined force that could shatter planets and reshape solar systems. The vessels stretched across thousands of kilometers of space, leak Veltari destroyers with their serpentine hulls, massive Gorlock dreadnoughts bristling with weapons, and the crystalline formations of Shardaki battle cruisers that sparkled like deadly jewels against the Starfield Ambassador. Jiwoo Kim stood on the bridge of the Veltari, flagship Cosmic Serpent, her small human form dwarfed by the alien technology surrounding her. The bridge itself was a marvel of bioengineering, its living walls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that monitored the ship's vital systems. Captain Zexstar coiled around his command throne, his scaled features displaying the deep skepticism that had brought him on this dangerous mission. "Your demonstration had better be worth the risk, human," the reptilian officer hissed, his forked tongue tasting the air for signs of deception. "My ship carries enough firepower to level a continent. If these shadow beasts attack, we'll glass the entire system before they can consume us." Around them, the bridge crew of various Veltari subspecies worked at stations that responded to touch, thought, and biochemical signals. Their technology was thousands of years more advanced than humanity's. Yet they watched their instruments with the nervous energy of prey animals sensing a predator. Jiwoo remained perfectly calm, her hands clasped behind her back as she gazed out at the colony spinning peacefully in the distance. "They won't attack," she replied with quiet confidence. "But something else might." As if summoned by her words, the ship's sensors erupted in a cacophony of warnings. The bridge lights shifted to emergency amber as detection systems registered something that made even the hardened alien crew gasp in terror. "Contact, multiple contacts," screamed the Veltari sensor operator, his scales flashing panic colors. Massive asteroid storm, bearing 127 Mark 45, accelerated by a dying star's gravity well. Impact in 14 minutes. The tactical display showed the terrifying truth. A field of asteroids, some larger than space stations, was hurtling toward them at relativistic speeds. The dying star HD 164,595 had gone supernova 3 days ago, and its gravitational death throes had flung debris across half the star system. "Captain." Star's eyes widened in horror as he studied the readings. "By the ancient serpent gods, those rocks are traveling at 30% light speed. Our shields can't handle that kind of kinetic impact. Shields up. All ships, evasive maneuvers," he commanded, his voice carrying across the fleet's communication network. "Emergency jump preparations. We need to get out of here now." But even as 12 different species scrambled to escape, everyone knew the truth. The asteroid field was too large, too fast, and too close. Several ships would be destroyed before they could activate their jump drives. The demonstration had become a death trap. Then, just as the alien crews began preparing for their final moments, space around them began to shimmer and bend. Reality rippled like water as 12 massive guardians materialized from the cosmic void, their star-like forms creating a protective barrier around the vessels The sight was beyond description. Each guardian was unique in its beauty, some resembled flowing galaxies of dark matter, others appeared as living constellations that pulsed with their own inner light. They moved with grace that defied physics, their forms shifting between dimensions as they took defensive positions around the fleet. "This is New Harmony Control," came Colony Administrator Soyoung's voice over the communication system.com. And reassuring. "Please remain calm. Our partners are handling the situation." Alien delegates watched in stunned silence as the Guardians worked in perfect coordination. Led by Cosmos, the massive entity that protected New Harmony, they began weaving gravitational fields into an impenetrable net of force that stretched across thousands of kilometers of space. The first asteroid struck the gravitational barrier with the force of nuclear weapons, but instead of shattering the defense, they were caught and held like insects in an invisible web. The Guardians manipulated gravity itself, creating pockets of compressed space-time that absorbed the kinetic energy and redirected it harmlessly away from the fleet. "Impossible," whispered the Kithara delegate aboard her hive ship. "The energy requirements alone should tear holes in the fabric of space." But the Guardians were doing more than mere deflection. As the asteroid storm continued to rage around them, the cosmic entities began transforming the deadly bombardment into something beautiful. Each redirected asteroid became part of an elaborate dance, creating spiraling patterns of light and matter that painted the cosmos in impossible beauty. Dr. Tamen's voice came through the communication system from New Harmony, sharing the neural link that connected him to Cosmos. "Can you feel it? They're not just protecting us, they're celebrating. They're showing off for their new friends." The truth was remarkable. The Guardians weren't struggling against the asteroid storm, they were playing with it. Ancient beings who had manipulated cosmic forces for millions of years were using their vast power to create art on a scale that dwarfed planetary systems. Young engineer Kim Jae-hyun stood in New Harmony's central plaza, his hands pressed against a guardian tendril that pulsed with warm energy. Through the neural connection, he could feel Cosmos's joy as it orchestrated the cosmic ballet. The Guardian's vast consciousness was guided by human intuition while providing cosmic-scale power that could reshape reality itself. "Left, now. Down, perfect," Jae-hyun called out, his voice carrying across the colony's communication network as he helped coordinate the spectacular display. The demonstration lasted 3 hours. Asteroids that could have destroyed worlds were caught, redirected, and arranged into increasingly complex patterns. The Guardians worked together like cosmic conductors, their combined will turning destruction into creation. When it finally ended, the space around the fleet was completely clear. But the Guardians had done something extraordinary. They had arranged the redirected asteroids into a perfect spiral galaxy formation, complete with spiral arms and a central bulge that sparkled with crystalline beauty. It was a gift for their visitors, a work of art created from the materials of destruction. Captain Zextar's scaled hands trembled as he slowly lowered his weapon systems. His ship's sensors confirmed what his eyes could barely believe. The asteroid field was gone, transformed into a monument to the power of cooperation between species. "By the ancient gods," he whispered, his voice filled with awe. How did you convince beings of such power to serve you?" Ji-woo smiled, her expression warm with the satisfaction of a point well made. "We didn't convince them to serve us, Captain. We asked them to be our friends." The alien delegates stared at the artificial galaxy spinning slowly in space before them, each one beginning to understand that humanity had not conquered the shadow beasts. They had discovered that the galaxy's most feared creatures were actually its loneliest inhabitants, desperate for the companionship that only another intelligent species could provide. The demonstration was over, but its impact would reshape galactic civilization forever. The human colony continued to spin peacefully in the distance, protected by beings who had chosen love over fear, partnership over domination. 1 year later, the Galactic Council chamber bore little resemblance to the sterile, imposing structure where humanity had once pleaded for acceptance. The massive crystalline walls now pulsed with gentle bioluminescence, while flowing tendrils of living starlight moved gracefully between the delegates, carrying messages in patterns of pure light and maintaining the station's systems with ethereal efficiency. Ambassador Giwoo Kim, stood before the assembly, but her role had transformed dramatically. No longer a petitioner seeking approval, she now wore the ceremonial robes of the newly created position of Director of Guardian Relations. Behind her, a juvenile guardian named Hope floated like a small constellation, its star nodes pulsing with curious light patterns as it learned about galactic politics through direct observation. The young guardian was barely 50 meters, cross-tiny, by Guardian standards, but its presence filled the chamber with wonder. Hope had been born from the joy of the first human-guardian bonds, a new form of consciousness that bridged the gap between cosmic entities and mortal beings. Its light patterns showed excitement as it watched the diverse array of alien species conducting their business. The Shepherd Initiative has exceeded all projections, Jiwoo announced, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's new acoustic systems that had been designed with Guardian assistance. Trade routes through formerly forbidden sectors have reduced shipping times by 60%. The Guardian-protected colonies have achieved 100% sustainability ratings. And most importantly, we've established communication protocols with over 300 individual Guardians across 17 star systems. The numbers were staggering, but the real transformation was visible in the faces of the delegates themselves. Where once there had been fear and suspicion, now there was genuine excitement about the possibilities that Guardian partnership offered. The Nexari delegate, whose bulbous form had once pulsed with alarm colors, now glowed with patterns of deep satisfaction. "My people's mining operations in the void sectors have never been safer," he reported, his translator rendering his biochemical emissions into words. "The Guardian assigned to our fleet, we call it Protectors, saves us from hazards we never even detect. Solar flares, gravity anomalies, unstable wormholes, all handled before they can threaten our crews." His testimony was particularly significant because the Nexari had initially been among the most vocal opponents of human expansion into Guardian territory. Their conversion to advocates had been complete after experiencing the protective care of their assigned Guardian firsthand, Dr. Kim Soon-mi, now director of the Interspecies Communication Institute, stepped forward to address the assembly. Her appearance had changed over the past year. Her eyes held depths that spoke of regular neural linking with cosmic consciousnesses, and her movements carried an almost otherworldly grace. "We've learned that what we interpreted as aggression was actually their attempts to communicate," she explained, activating a holographic display that showed archived footage of Guardian encounters. Every ship they destroyed was actually being pulled into protective custody. They were trying to save crews from cosmic hazards that our instruments couldn't detect. The footage was remarkable. What had once been recorded as terrifying attacks were now revealed as desperate rescue attempts. Guardians had been wrapping ships in protective fields, pulling them away from deadly radiation storms, unstable stars, and dimensional rifts that would have annihilated entire crews. The chamber buzzed with translation. Devices working overtime as dozens of species shared their experiences. The massive Gorlock representative, whose people had lost 3 battle fleets to Guardian encounters, now spoke with reverence about Guardian assistance in repairing their homeworld's damaged atmosphere. The Guardian called Thunder Voice has spent 6 months helping us restore our planet's ozone layer, the 4-armed warrior reported. "My people breathe clean air for the first time in generations. Our children will grow up under blue skies instead of the protective domes we've required for centuries." The insectoid Cathara delegate clicked in harmonious tones as she described agricultural miracles. Guardian-tended growing stations are producing enough food to end famine on 17 worlds. The entities understand photosynthesis at a molecular level and can optimize growing conditions in ways our science never imagined. But it was the voice of Guardian Cosmos itself, speaking through the neural link with young Park Ki-tae, that truly captured the moment. The 12-year-old boy stood beside Jiwoo, his eyes glowing with the shared consciousness of his Guardian partner. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that resonated through dimensions beyond normal hearing. "For eons, we drifted alone, in the void, mistaking fear for hatred, isolation for hostility. The Guardian's consciousness flowed through the child's words. The humans taught us that the universe is not empty, it's full of potential friends waiting to be discovered. They showed us that protection and partnership are not weaknesses, but the greatest strengths of all. The chamber fell silent as the profound loneliness of the Guardian species became clear. These cosmic entities had spent millions of years misunderstood, feared and avoided by every intelligent species they encountered. Their defensive reactions had been misinterpreted as aggression, creating a cycle of fear that had persisted for millennia. As the session concluded, Jiwoo looked out through the chamber's vast transparent walls. In the space beyond, dozens of Guardians moved in graceful formation with ships from across the galaxy. The sight was breathtaking, massive beings of living starlight serving as escorts for trade convoys, their presence turning the most dangerous regions of space into safe highways for commerce and exploration. In the station's recreational areas, human children played with juvenile Guardians in zero-gravity gardens filled with plants from 100 different worlds. The young entities had learned to mimic games, creating light shows that delighted their human friends, while alien scientists worked alongside Guardian-bonded humans to unlock technologies that would benefit all species. The transformation was complete. The galaxy's most feared creatures had become its most beloved protectors, and humanity had once again proven that their greatest weapon was not technology or military force, but the simple courage to extend a hand in friendship to the unknown. Lee Minho, formerly captain of the research vessel New Dawn, watched from the command deck of his flagship as his ship, surrounded by its Guardian partner Voyager, led a convoy of vessels toward the galactic rim. They were no longer exploring empty space. They were bringing connection to the lonely corners of the universe, seeking out other isolated species and entities who might benefit from the gift of friendship. In the final scene, 6-year-old Nam, Woojin, and a juvenile Guardian named Starlight played together in the zero-gravity gardens of New Harmony Colony. Their laughter echoed across the cosmos as representatives of hundreds of species watched in wonder, finally understanding that the universe was not a cold, hostile place, but a vast community waiting to be discovered. The child's giggle mixed with the Guardian's harmonic pulses, creating a song of joy that seemed to spread through the very fabric of space itself. It was the sound of hope, the music of friendship, and the promise that no being in the universe ever had to be alone again. End.